All right, JAG University, Kevin, let's get into like how to get into the insurance business. Now, I know insurance is a lot of different roles, but we're going to talk about what we do every day and more on the property casualty side.
Yeah.
Obviously, we love what we do. We got into it in different ways. I'll take a little credit for you getting into it because I'm your uncle. But besides that, give me like 101. What would you recommend to anybody wanting to get into this business? How to start?
Okay, so how to start? I mean, one thing to keep in mind about insurance is that there's so many different types of roles within the industry,
right?
That it's hard to say, oh, I like careers in insurance or I don't like careers in insurance, because you range from being completely sales and commission driven like you and I to being a pure like a underwriting kind of data minded, or you can be an actuary where you're all just on the back end, or even just kind of pure processing stuff. It really depends. You know, there's people that they focus completely on claims or risk management. So the industry is so broad that I think you have to think about, you know, what are you like personality wise and what do you want out of a career? If you're kind of the person that's like, oh, I'm aggressive and competitive and I want to get after it, I want to compete, I want to win, then okay, being a producer, being on our side makes a lot more sense. But if you're someone that's, I'm analytical, I like to take my time, I don't necessarily like pressure, you know, I like to just kind of figure out problems and break them down and come up with solutions. Maybe something on the underwriting or claim side makes more sense. And then you have everything in between.
There's so many different levels to it. What's interesting, and my experience, a lot of people either try to get into it, they have kind of a bad first experience. Again, it could have been one specific role that they you know, basically got shied away from the industry, right? But I think I'd give everybody the advice to kind of get your feeling out phase kind of in, do different kind of roles. But definitely insurance runs the world, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it just, no matter what, I don't want to use the word recession proof, but depending on what happens with the economy, right? Rates go up, rates come down. Like we're kind of that necessary evil, which is kind of like the quote unquote stigma we have. But there's just so many things really that benefit everybody once you get into it, right? You talked about claims, being an actuary, underwriting, being a producer, being a mentor in the insurance space. I think it's the best business in the world. It's like the worst, best kept secret. That makes sense.
Yeah, it really is really interesting. People say that insurance is the lifeblood of commerce, just because it'd be impossible to even have operations without insurance because it's just too risky. No bank would be able to lend money because there's no way to guarantee your collateral. So there's no transfer of goods and services. There's no services being provided. There's no assets being exchanged because no one can give any money because there's no guarantee that the collateral is worth anything if something happens. So it's pretty cool. I mean, insurance policies go back thousands of years. You have the ships and the Silk Road and all of that, Lloyd's of London since the 1600s.
Yep.
So there's a lot of history and a lot of importance in facilitating these deals. And then you really start to understand how big the world is, and it's really crazy. But what I think people don't realize is that it's very challenging just to hop in and start selling it. It's not like you're selling a pack of knives or you're selling a specific piece of niche software. It's to actually be a P&C agent like us, you almost kind of have to understand everything at a certain level.
Right.
And you have to really know how to speak the language and communicate things to lenders, clients, carriers, inspectors, everybody, to be the glue that holds a deal together.
I mean, you're the ultimate middle person, right? Like as companies emerge, technologies emerge, and people were basically, right, getting information from somebody, digesting it, giving it to a carrier to be able to kind of figure out, right, how do we properly insure your risk?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, kind of one of the underrated, fascinating parts about our business that most people don't understand. Like that's where this becomes fun.
Yeah. And you really have to pay your dues, especially if you want to go into the producer side. It's the first few years are always going to be ugly. They're going to be tough. I mean, it's just, you take your knocks along the way and there's so much to learn. You never learn everything, no matter how long you're in the business.
We're still learning today.
You can get blindsided by something out of nowhere, right, in the business for 30 years, had no idea it was coming. And you just kind of have to still figure out a way to keep everybody happy, get the deal done, so things can keep moving.
I mean, to close it up, man, my advice would be have an open mind, get in the business, but understand that it's going to suck for a while.
Yeah, understand it's going to suck for a while, but also understand where things are going. Like, it's cool that we have an intern now. He's actually sitting right over there. And
Shout out to Marcus.
it's basically when you intern, you can work somewhere without fully committing your life to it. You can see, okay, I'll start here, then I can move there, then I can get to there. And maybe working on this area for a year or two might not be the greatest, but eventually I'll build up to a point where I can do this, and that looks pretty cool.
Well, how much did the internship help you?
It helped me a ton because, one, it allowed me to start a little bit more ahead when I graduated out of college. I did 2 summers interning, and then I worked remote my last year. So by the time I started, I was pretty experienced. And then I knew my boss, I knew my employees, and I knew what my kind of my path at that company was. I knew what my income would be like in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years based upon my performance.
It's almost like you fast forwarded your plan, right?
Yeah.
A little bit less of guesswork, but you had more of a projection of what was going to happen next.
Yeah. And my professional career has been entirely in insurance, so I can't really speak to how this applies to different industries. But I think the scariest thing you can do is go somewhere with no plan and not know what you're going to do and where you want to be and when, because you just kind of get lost and you just become like the Swiss Army knife, and no one knows how to value you, and you don't even know how to value your own skill set. You don't know what to get better at. That's crazy, because if you're going in, ultimately your goal is to become a producer and a salesperson and someone that brings in business. The entire time to be working on your relationships, to be working on your sales skills, to be building your knowledge, to be keeping in contact with your network and making as many connections as possible on the background, so that when you're really producing, you can tap into that. But if you don't know what you're going to do, you can't really lay the groundwork. So I think that's what's important about an internship. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm starting at the bottom here, but I see these people over there that are where I want to be, and I like that. And maybe I can shadow them and talk to them, and I can be sure whether or not this is something I want to do. Because if it's a summer where you're in college, who cares if you lose it? It really doesn't matter. You never get another summer again after you graduate.
No, I think most people don't even take advantage of potential internships, right? It's more about, talk about the maturity level and using the summer for personal growth, right? That's going to affect you in 2-3 years instead of hanging out at the beach. But I think, internships, extremely underrated.
Yeah. And what's cool too is that, you speak of, hey, you can get security and I like something, or you can say, I really didn't like it. I don't like this company. I don't like the management. I don't like the path here. Now I know not to do this when I finish, and I dodged a bullet. So
that's probably even more important.
I think that's
dodging
more important.
that bullet.
I think it's more important for sure. And you get to lay groundwork. So that's my advice on anyone entering insurance, is to just talk to people, to understand that it's not one size fits all, that even within agencies, they're totally different. There's so many different sides of the industry. Just figure out with yourself what you're like, what drives you, what your personality is, and see where it fits. And just talk to people within the business, and know that you have to pay your dues for a couple of years to learn the language and learn how complex this is first. But once you get it, it's not that bad.
Sky's the limit.